Day, what a day. That's what fatigue looks like. Today, I'm coming to you with something that I wanted to share for a while now, and I've been sharing it on my Instagram a little bit by little bit. Not really so much these days now that I'm illustrating books and things. So I'm spending a lot of time doing like client work. So I have decided to take that content and put it here on YouTube so that it's beneficial to those of you who are really wanting to hone the illustrating. And I mean, I'm no sensei. I'm just obviously going to share with you the things that I've learned over the past year. Yeah, past year, because prior to that I was not illustrating and have managed to kind of leap from learning to selling in a space of time that I think is quite short, and so I'm clapping for myself. Just give me a second. Party girl, party baby girl. Yeah, so I wanted to share with you the top 5 tips that I have in terms of illustrating, how to get started, kind of break down my workflow and show you how you get to see the images that you see on my Instagram. Bearing in mind that I have a very limited amount of patience. So I tend to find ways to be more efficient. And you'll see. Tip number 1. When you're illustrating, you obviously have a blank page on a canvas, blank canvas. Ooh, now what to do? You've got to obviously have some rough ideas. What do you want to draw? Like, what is it that you want to put down? Is it an apple? No. Okay. Whatever it is, you need to put that rough idea down. The sizing of it, do you want it big? Do you want it small? Do you want it close? Do you want it far? Put that rough idea down. Hey, you've got a rough. Yes, that's great. Yay! But don't get too excited. Nothing was made overnight. What do you think this is? But what do you actually think this is? Like, you have to do another one. Do another one. That's another one. Do it. It's not looking too good, is it? I mean, we can clean it up. We can tidy it up a bit. Yeah. Let's do another rough. We do another rough. Okay. How does that look? Does that look fine to you? Just one more time. Maybe you can just like push it one more time. Just one last time. Do a final rough. Now that you have your rough done, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, you look at them and you think, okay, number 4 is definitely the best. Yay! Once you do that, you know what the funny thing is? I'm now thinking about these roughs and I'm like, wait, if I have no idea whatsoever how to draw, I'm not just going to draw 4 rough drawings and have this amazing stunning construction line piece. Give yourself enough time to make enough rough drawings, because you can't submit the first thing that you put on paper. It's not professional. Referencing in your rough, because without reference you will have a shady baby rough work. So rather have the rough work as close to together as possible. So make sure you have a reference, a couple of references. References won't they won't hurt. Just make sure you have your references when you're doing your rough work. So once you've done your rough work, now you have to clean up those lines and make sure that they're smooth lines, unless you're going for a look that is jagged and texturized and it's not so clean. Then obviously you can have jagged and rough and squiggly lines. But if you're trying to portray something that is of industry standard and that looks smooth and clean, then you've got to redraw your rough work with proper solid clean lines. Lines are done, you have to then go in with some color. Pick a color palette. If you have a color palette that you usually go to, then obviously you have that. But if you don't, this is where referencing comes in again. Do you want your image to be a bright image? Do you want your image to be a dull image with pastel, kind of muted tones? Or do you want it to scream and be explosive and bold? You need to make those decisions in your mind first whilst you're doing the rough work. So when it comes to coloring in, you're not spending too much time kind of like fumbling. So you will have to make a color palette of sorts on the side if you're not too sure about the colors that you want to put into the drawing, and make sure that you're okay with the color choices that you've made. And so you put a base color on your illustration, and it should start to look like it's coming together now because you've done the rough work, the line work, the foreground and the background. And yeah, if you that is obviously if you're doing foreground and background. Otherwise, if you're character designing, then the background is usually something very simple, maybe grass on the feet or just a plain background. Yeah, so just bear in mind that the coloring process is quite simple. It's just a foundation phase. So once you have your color down, you've got to make this thing have a bit of dimension. I mean, even the Simpsons have dimension as much as they are 2D. The Princess and the Frog has dimension, even though it's 2D. You're able to see shadows and you're able to see highlights. So that's the next two phases that you would follow after laying down your foundational color. You need to obviously create shadows to show that the objects in the illustration have dimension and space and fill up the page and can be kind of located on a plane. Depending on how 2D/3D you want your work to be would depend on how much shadowing you're putting in and how much highlights you're putting in. So and obviously with shadows come highlights, with lows come highs, with happiness comes sadness. Or like if you look at my face, for example, I have highlight on, not real highlight. God, I woke up like this. I'm joking, I didn't. But you can see that where the light is hitting my face, there's highlight on my nose, there's highlight on my cheeks. I've intentionally put highlights in my inner tear ducts. Yeah, and there's highlight on my neck, there's shadows on my neck. So the same way in real life there's shadows and highlights, you need to put shadows and highlights in your work. Ooh, this point number 5. I'm looking over there because that's where my notes are. Point number 5 is cool, and not cool in the sense that like it's cool, like yo, this is so cool. But it's cool because if you don't do this, then it's not cool. Like it's just not. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money, and it's just a waste. Like just don't do this. Don't not do this point. So tip number 5: please use layers. Like use the layers, and once you've used those layers, you must save your work. And after you've saved your work, you must back it up, because if you don't have layers and you do everything on one layer and you make a mistake, girl, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. You have to go all the way back to the rough work and then start again. No. You've got to put in your layers. Once you put in so for example, your rough is one layer. Your rough 1 is one layer. Rough 2 is another layer. 1, layer 2, line 1. Your color foundation is another layer. Your highlight is another layer. Your shadow is another layer. So everything has its own space. So if you get the highlight wrong per se, then you can just delete the layer and continue. Otherwise, you're deleting the whole thing. The benefit of illustration is the fact that you can have layers. It's not like a painting. It's not like a piece of paper. Photoshop gives you, and many other platforms give you, the ability to layer your work. So if you can layer your work, trust me, you are at an advantage. And whilst you're layering, don't forget to save, because if you just layer and have all this work that you've done and don't save, woe is thee. Woe. Make sure it's backed up. Before you delete any content, I'm just kicking myself. Before you delete any content that you've worked on, be it layers, make sure you've saved it and you have a space somewhere, like be it on the cloud, Google Drive, whatever. Just make sure you have a backup. If you have a hard drive, even better. Like, just make sure you have a backup. Send it to yourself via email, send it to a friend, send it to your mom or your grandparents. Do something, but just make sure that your work is somewhere that you can access it, or whatever happens in the case of an unfortunate event. Please save. It's very important. It's so important. Important. It's very NB. It's so important. So please make sure to do that at every stage. Like, so for example, if you're doing a rough and it's taking you 3 days to do a rough, make sure you save and back up in between, because you do not. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video or learned something or two. If you have, let me know what you've learned down below. Like a teacher, let me know what you've learned down below. If I've been like very beneficial to you, let me know as well, so that I can give you more of this content. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next video, probably with a review of some sort. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, you know what to do by now. I'm sure you do. I mean, you've been on YouTube, like, it's a catch. If you haven't, sing it. I should even make a song. Sing it with me. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you've liked this video, like it. If you have comment. Turn on the notification bell if you want to know when I post. But like, it's every Wednesday and sometimes in between, because I like things and I love to record on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye. Beyonce's spirit